Hey folks, and welcome to the Pipnotic Symposium for the 4th of May 2020. Today we're going to talk about the currency strength indicator, and we are also going to run over a bunch of pairs. First of all, the currency strength histogram has been released and it's running. We have about 10 to 15 people using it currently, and I'm hoping that the rest of the subscribers will start to use it here within the next month. I've left the old version running for the time being so that people can slowly move over to the new version. If you have any troubles getting that installed, please type your comments and your questions in the Discord channel. I know Mac users might run into some issues, so we have to figure out what's going on with Mac. I'm thinking the Wine virtualization environment that virtualizes the Windows environment is controlling networking a little bit differently, and if the software can't contact the licensing server, well, then it won't run the software. And so there's something going on. I have to try and figure out what's going on. But if you're using a Mac and you have the option to run it on a PC, I recommend doing so. And in the meantime, I'll see if I can figure out what's going on. Yeah, so slowly but surely we're slowly starting to get everyone onto the newer base of software, which is very exciting, very, very exciting indeed. So we're going to have a look at some pairs, and we're going to run through a bunch of currency pairs. And we can start off by having a look at this pair here. This is the Euro British Pound. If we have a look at the overall strength of the Euro British Pound, you can see that we have the Euro here. This is the what is this? This is daily strength information. So let's have a look slightly longer term. This is the weekly, so we have weekly strength information just here in this window, and you can see that the pound and the euro are just about the same, roughly bleeding edge. On the daily information, we can see that we have the euro that's slightly stronger than the pound, and so on and so forth. So if we go back to the price chart here, you can see that we have historical area of rejection up here. So we had the beginning of a sell zone, which is towards these highs just up here, and since price left there, we formed these beautiful areas of supply. We had this lovely area here which was tested, now price left. We have this one here which is a child. We have a few children testing each other here, and then price drops, we move sideways, and then we cut away. And since the release there, we have the beginning of the sell zone for this area is right here. And so I think this will be a very interesting area to begin to watch price react at once price moves back up into this area. And also notice that we have something in here. And you can see this because this is where price tested. So price rallied, moved sideways, moved higher. We poked into the area, creating a new buy zone, and then we had price sit on top of the area before it cut through it. So this is telling us that this area here is the one that removed this one, and this is a very nice area because this is kind of a swap zone, if you want to call it that, where price swaps sides here, where we have price moving higher, testing it, sitting on it, and then moving down. So this would be the opposing sides of that area here, about the 0.920 area. I think that's a pretty interesting area. So we'll have to wait and see what happens there. And also notice that the currency strength histogram is slowly moving higher. So if we manage to reach, let's say around, let's see where the 2.0 is, like 2.0 and above levels, I think we'll be pretty good to go. So let's just mark that off. So if we manage to get anywhere around here at the time price reaches here, I think that'll be a very attractive place to begin to accumulate some short orders here. So that's my plan for me and my accounts. We'll have to wait and see what happens. And remember, the things that I'm talking about in all of my webinars, this is just stuff that I'm considering. You don't have to do any of this stuff. If you decide to trade, it's your own discretion and your own risk. But this is just me going through my analysis. Okay, so let's have a look at a couple more pairs. Let's just scan through a bunch of different ones. Another euro pair, the euro Japanese yen. Notice that, let me move this back to the default setting here. Let's just put this to 2.5. It's just a decent reading. Yes, the price got to this level here, down here, just here, and price had a pretty significant bounce. We moved away. Now we're starting to slowly wriggle higher. We do have, before we do anything, let's see what's going on there. These slightly larger time frames. Let's go to the weekly and see. Here we're reacting at weekly demand. You can see we poked into it just here. So this is important. This is telling us that the major flows are going to slowly begin to shift a shorter term and move higher. And also notice here that we do have this. Okay, so we do have currency strength divergence. What does that tell us? That means that we have lower lows, so we have price moving deeper into demand. But the strength of these two currencies relative to one another is not supporting this pair continuing to move lower. And so we can expect, based on what we can see here, the price is going to move higher. Is that guaranteed? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. But there's a likelihood the price is going to wriggle higher from here. And you can see the signs of this starting to happen now. Okay, so we had some lows, like the low areas here. Okay, tested, and then price moved below it, and we had, let me see here in a smaller time frame. So we had a couple of areas here. We had this one. And this is not a very interesting area, but it's an area nonetheless. But price kind of moved high. We tested it. We came down. We sat on the area, and then we cut through it. So there's something in here for like a shorter term trade. We've got this here. Okay, about the 1800. But you'd have to be careful because we can see on the major time frame that the flows are starting to move into the euro and out of the Japanese yen. So we might see this pair continue to drift higher shorter term. If we have a look here on the smaller time frame, we can see a few different things. First of all, we had this here. This is an area of supply. Price left here. We went below these lows. We tested it. And now we cut through it. And so you ask yourself the question, what area of demand remove this? And we have something down here. It's just in here. So we're going to have to go to the smaller time frames once again to find these very clear entries. And let me go like this. So we have this is the price nodule. Tested, gone. So now let's go to the 5-minute chart, see if we can find out what one caused that to be removed. Let's scroll back, and maybe on the 1 minute even. Don't spend a lot of time on the 1-minute charts. That's quite interesting. So let's see here, 1 minute. What do we have? Yeah, we have a couple of things here. We have this one here, so maybe a small bounce here. That's the only real push that we can see here. So I think we'll start to see price bounce. This is intraday. This is shorter term, from around the, what is that? Oh, the 116.20 area, because this is the area that removed the supply back here. If I can find it. I don't know if I've got enough data. Here. This is where it is. You can actually see it was like that, but if you consider this is actually the beginning of sell zone. It starts around here. So we go back out to maybe the 30-minute chart. Yes, you can see tested, and this is the area that removed it. This lines up nicely with kind of like the resistance becomes support scenario, which will kind of bring us back to around here-ish. Okay, which is kind of roughly where that is. But essentially, this is 1-minute chart, so I don't consider 1-minute charts for a second, but I just do want to kind of pinpoint potential very precise entry areas. So like we're talking, we could get a bounce on this area, and it might work out for a handful of minutes. Okay, so go down on the 1-minute chart and watch prices as it returns to that area, and see what happens. But we do have the bulk of the bullish liquidity down here. We've got a continuation pattern just inside here. Let's have a look at that, because this is an important one. We'll go to the 5-minute chart. Have a look. That's the yellow one. Gotta find the box. Oh, I can't find it. that's the, sorry, it's the, not the yellow one, it's the white one. We can see that just here. So you can see it just here. This is where price left some. So if we remove this, we have a look. We have price rallying. We move sideways for 2 periods. This one closed. This one closed above these very clearly. So this is an interesting area. Let's do something like this. That's an interesting area. The software found it nicely for us. So maybe we'll have a bit of a temporary bounce at that price point. Let me remove all of these. Go on to something else. Daily chart. Let's look. Right. Let's have a look at the EuroCAD. So the EuroCAD is reaching these pretty high levels at a point where, I mean, the currency strength histogram is very, very high. So let's move up to the weekly chart because we want to see some clarity here. Let's go to the monthly once again. Okay, let's find out where these lines are located. So we have the release from here. No, wrong thing. Here we have the release from here. Price went down, it came back, and it left. So that this big move originated from the highs. Actually, we could go like that. From this, the high of this, it went down. Price came at once, twice, and now we're getting close to it again. What does that mean? Well, we don't know yet. We'll have to wait and see. But when price comes up here, it's been there once, twice before. But we saw some enormous rejection when it was up there. And so I'm thinking at the highs of the deepest retracement since this area would be an interesting area to get on board again. And you can see that just a little bit higher, which is just up here. Sorry, my son's playing in the pool in the background, and sounds like there's a dinosaur or a Pokemon, a battle. So we have this. These are the highs here, and we have on the weekly chart. If we have a closer look, you can see that, I mean, the histogram could push higher, and by the time it gets up to these the sell zones here, the sell levels here, we'll be reaching the highs up here. So I'd be super keen on having a look at these levels here. Okay, but I think I'd like to see another run higher. So essentially what I'd like to see is I'd like to see something like this happen. This is the longer term, so on the weekly chart, but if you look at this on a smaller time frame, it'll look probably something like this. So we're going to have, sorry, wrong. And price is probably going to do the opposite, where it's going to go higher and go even higher at something up here, which would be great, because this would be doing this would be doing this, kind of helping us build up confidence to short at these extreme levels. So we'll have to wait and see what happens there. If we have a look on the daily, maybe this is slowly starting to take form, and not quite yet. We need these to push higher. I'd like to see these push a little bit higher. If we go like this, okay, you can see, I'd like to see price kind of push a little bit higher up to here. I'd like to maintain these kind of lows here, which would make this a really interesting area to begin to sell from at the beginning of the sell zone, which is above this purple line, which is the 161.50 area. Okay, that would be a pretty interesting area, I think, to begin to sell from. And these are kind of longer term trades. We'll have to wait and see what happens, but this is beginning to work out nicely here. We're starting to reach these really high levels, and this is unsustainable. Historically, these levels have not once ever kept going. When these levels reach these extreme readings like we're seeing here, every single time historically on all the data I have on this platform, price has stopped and turned around. That doesn't mean that you're going to win every one of those trades. It simply means that it's a good point to entertain the idea of, for this pair, to sell. Okay, and the difficulty is you have to be precise with your entry, because if you're selling and you don't know where where to put your stops, well, then you're at risk of getting your stop hit. So at a situation like this, you want to make sure that you're putting your stop significantly higher than price. So we'll have to wait and see what happens. Okay, so let's have a look at let's have a look at this on the smaller time frame, because a lot of people watching are like, oh man, I don't want to wait days to get a trade, because I know like a lot of people view trading as entertainment, and so they want to get in. So let's have a look at some shorter term potential and see if there's anything setting up. Yeah, we do have a few things that are looking interesting, but I'd be careful because we are reaching these levels here. Look here, when price pulled up into here and we started to move away, and so we're very high, so it'd be nice for a really nice retracement before we start to buy again. And price is kind of reaching these areas here, as you can see, and now we're starting to bleed back. So careful buying for the moment, because if you just look here at the data, I mean, look what's happened. Last time price got up to these levels here, we mark off the all-time high. Here it went down. Let me draw these out for us. When it went here, price went down. We got here, price went down. We got here, price went down. We got here. Well, we don't know what's going to happen, but historically what has happened, well, price has moved away. You can do the same thing below price here, where we had prices here and it went higher, price was here and it went oops, and it went higher. Okay, and the same thing happens here. Here we had some really nice kind of divergence here, where we had an increase in the strength of the euro relative to the Canadian dollar. We had price moving lower, and price had a nice bounce here, but we weren't content, or price wasn't content with this just yet. We started to exhibit these very, very low lows, as you can see here, and we started to see price retrace, but price kept moving down, seeking liquidity to move, to figure out what it's going to do next. And so you can see that price is really sensitive at these extreme levels here. It doesn't mean that every single one of them is going to work, but it's telling you that there's a really high probability that the price is going to have a bounce. And if we're reacting at extreme levels, at opposing areas, so we have, for example, the beginning of a sell zone up here, while price, so we have this here, we have this area of supply here at a pretty high reading. I mean, that's a pretty high probability setup. So I'm thinking once price comes up here, shorter term, we might have a bit of an intraday bounce. And if you look at this, price went up there, we tested, and we're pretty high up. And so I think that entertaining short-term sells from around this area here would maybe be a pretty interesting idea. But note that this is intraday short-term stuff. On the big term, on the longer term, we are looking ready to move lower, and this would be a pretty interesting area. This is a pretty interesting area. So if this is at the 55.74, let's look here. I'll mark off the whole area. Go to the short to term and look. This is what it's looking like. But note here that we have, since this area was formed here, like so, it left, price tested, we jumped down, we had another test to onboard more sellers, and then we finally left. And so we do have a pretty interesting area here as well. This is at the 156.20. So I think anything, let's see what that looks like on the 4-hour chart. Yeah, that's interesting, because this is where kind of price came back to before it left, and would also give us a little bit of an extreme, like a very extreme reading on the hourly chart. I mean, a really strong push. I don't know if we're going to get up there. That's pretty far away still, but I think from the 156.16, I mean, that would be a really nice place to begin to short here. So we'll have to wait and see what happens there, but a couple of ideas there on the Euro Canadian. Let me remove these objects. We'll have a look at one more, and then I'm going to go for lunch. So the American dollar, Japanese yen. There's a lot of speculation from alternative economists. And an alternative economist is someone who views monetary policy and global economy from a slightly different angle. They consider things that traditional economists don't. And so there's a lot of cool stuff coming out from, for example, Peter Schiff, who I think is a really entertaining guy. So if you don't know who Peter Schiff is, you should go to Spotify and watch and listen to his podcast. He's really interesting. And him and a bunch of other guys that I've been listening to are talking about this American dollar default. They've been talking for such a long time about this insane amount of quantitative easing going on in the US, which will create insane levels of inflation, which will essentially make the value of the American dollar go to nothing in pretty short amount of time. And so I think it would be really interesting to see what happens with the American dollar when we start to reach these interesting historically respected areas at a time where we have the potential for hyperinflation. So if we have a look at this is the American dollar, Japanese yen. If we go to the weekly chart and have a look, and we've had some pretty volatile conditions. We've had this area of supply, price went up to it and tested it and then flew away. I mean, look at the size of that. The risk reward on that trade alone was staggering, absolutely staggering. That could have made up all the losses for a month. I mean, look at the size of the stop, this little box here, and look how far it went. It's amazing, absolutely amazing. Okay, so price shot down, it went back up, and now it's moving lower. So we're seeing we have a negative bias here. We don't have extreme readings, but we do have negative bias. And when we have a negative bias, where we have the majority of the reading, the histogram below the zero line, well, then we're going to see price wriggle lower. Okay, if we go to I don't know if I have enough data here. We go to the daily chart and have a look. You can see here that if we look at the mean of the histogram, I mean, we're below the zero line, so we're moving lower, and you can see this pretty clearly here. And so I think it'd be pretty interesting to begin to look at some intraday shorts on the American dollar, Japanese yen. For the time being, I'm not sure if this is going to hold up because there's a lot going on at the moment. We have a lot of fiddling in with the Bank of Japan as well in relation to the Japanese yen. So this is kind of some interesting times. So shorter term trades, I think that we could definitely see this pair wriggle lower. And if we have a look here, we do have price kind of moving between this area of demand and this area of supply just here. And this is supply because we had this. We had a child here that was tested, price sat on it, cut through it. So we have liquidity here. We came pretty close to it, so we're moving between this one here and this one here, which has just been tested. And this is nice area. Price left, slingshot was pulled back, and when we flew higher, so the beginning of the buy zone is actually where price is currently now. Price went a little bit deeper, and then we found an interest to shorter term move this pair higher. So if we go to the hourly chart and have a look, you can actually see that we have here. You can see the kind of price pushing lower. So we're having kind of lower pushes. The histogram's kind of reaching these levels here. You can see price poked into them, and then price had a sharp rejection. Now price is feeding back into this. So we did have a couple of interesting areas. We had something in here. We have like a distribution candle there. Let's mark it off like so. It was tested. Price went through it. We closed back in. We moved up into it. This one removed it, so I'm going to move this over here. Price came down. We tested it. We went up. We went and sat on it, and now we left. So this area removed it. The software found all of these levels for us, except for this one. Price tested this, and now we're moving lower. And now we're kind of looking to go a little bit deeper to begin to maybe attract some shorter term buyers. Or higher up, we have some interesting areas. We have this one here, which is still basically untested. We also have this one up here, which is nice. We just box off the whole area, which is interesting for us. Okay, so the 110.70 area, that might be pretty interesting. let's have a look on the daily and see what that looks like. Then the context. I mean, here we have, we have the beginning of the sell zone. Price came down, we went up, we poked into this area, the one we just marked off, then we managed to move below the lows here. But now we're focusing or kind of probing into this area of, we have, come on, box, we have accumulation, price left, slingshot was pulled back to here. So this is what we're currently moving at. Let's remove this. This is what we're currently contending with. So price might have a little bit of a push into here and then continue higher. We don't know, but I do like this one down here, which is a little bit further away from price. It's also going to give the histogram an opportunity to move lower. When I say it gives the histogram the opportunity to move lower, I hate it when people say, oh, the moving average has just crossed over, so that's a reason to buy, because in my optic that's bullshit. But this is based on an incredible amount of data. Okay, and so this is not just some random histogram. If the histogram moves towards these green lines, I mean, that's a pretty interesting area to begin to buy if we're lined up nicely with some demand down here. Okay, and the opposite for supply. If price comes up to here and we have the histogram reaching this red line here, then again that's giving us confidence and a good opportunity to begin to sell. Okay, good. Well, I'm going to leave it at that for the time being. If you have any questions, please type them in the video below or leave them in the Discord channel. Thanks for watching.